This is a video about Dog Latin, or debased form of English, and it's everywhere. And you were taught in school that it was acceptable. I'll give examples. Now, I was going to do a separate video on section 3714. That's careless driving. It's from the Pennsylvania Vehicle Code. But before I continue here, I came across this guy. Romley Stewart, and his channel is named the Justinian Deception. I think this guy here is on target. Now there's another guy that's posting videos on this channel. I don't particularly care for him, but this guy here, I think he has his act together. Now in one of his videos, he talks about the deceived into consent, and he describes it as grammatical deceptions, and I agree with that. How English grammar was mixed with the grammar of ancient Latin, and they came up with this Dog Latin. And the style manual defines Dog Latin as a foreign language. But it looks like English, but it's not. Well, what's a style manual? A style manual is like the rule book on how to draft documents in English. So I already have a copy of the federal style manual, but this guy Romley, he was talking about the Chicago manual style, the 16th edition. So I was able to find one on eBay, and I bought it. It's only $15. And for example, the way your name appears in the driver's license, that is Dog Latin, and it's a bastardized form of English. So you go to court and you start raising that issue that there's that these documents are contaminated with words and phrases from as a foreign language. For example, here, this is Pennsylvania citation. See, this up part, that's called the ledger or ledge. Now you would read this Commonwealth of Pennsylvania and you would think there's nothing wrong with that, but that was written in Dog Latin. When you have words in all uppercase lettering, that violates the grammatical rules of English. Ancient Latin, you would have a hyphen between these words here. This is a foreign language. It's not English. And all your legal documents, well, the lawyers, I call that the legalese. It's said it's all deception. Now, at one time, if you were a motorist, you were able to get a copy of the vehicle code at the local gas station. So at one time, at a gas station, they handed out like free road maps, and they also had these. You get a copy of the vehicle code. But here's one from 1927. You got this, I guess, at the Gulf gas station. And these were printed by this Twyman O. Abbott. Now, he was a noted publisher in his day. I mean, if you would type in his name on Google, there's a lot of books he wrote, especially about the vehicle code. But anyway, because he was the publisher, he took the Pennsylvania Vehicle Code and then he separated it into chapters and paragraphs. And I explain that because when when the legislative body passes an act or a bill, that's the law. And then when it's transferred into the Vehicle Code, then it's given a different classification number, because then it becomes part of the corporate regulations and into a code or statute. Now, see, at one time in like 1927, the rules of the road were fair. See here, this paragraph 27. Well, that would be the general rule. Now, no one would be cited under paragraph 276, which, he gives the footnotes of what sections that they were talking about. And it was the duty of the legislative to define specific acts what they would consider reckless driving. Like the first one here, if you had more than 3 people in the front seat of a vehicle, and if you were involved in an accident, then you could be charged with reckless driving. Why? Well, the front seat of the vehicles wasn't as big as they are today, and the gear shifter was on the floor. They didn't have automatic transmissions then. The transmissions didn't have synchronized gears. So if you had this front seat jammed with too many people and someone knocked the gear shift like into neutral, and if you were going down a hill, you couldn't get the transmission back in gear to help braking, because back then most of the cars only had rear wheel brakes. So you needed to use the engine compression to help, slow down the vehicle. And said you were going down a hill, someone's foot knocks the shifter in neutral, away you go. But then another one here, the same thing here, this same reason with this paragraph 278. You were not allowed to coast or travel down a grade with the gears in neutral, because you needed the engine compression to help in stopping the vehicle. As I said, back then the transmissions didn't have synchronized gears. You couldn't get it back into gear. Or when you were going around a turn, you had to sound the horn when approaching, especially a blind turn. I mean, some of these rules were reasonable. Now, but getting back to this section 3714, they have the general rule listed as a subsection that violates the style manual. And furthermore, well, we only ever needed one classification called reckless driving, and then you could have subsections, because careless driving to me is a form of reckless driving. But during the Great Depression, 1930s, well, the legislative body, they had to disregard the style manual, and then they wanted to create separate classifications to make more money. So what they did, when they listed a general rule as a subsection, they handed over legislative authority, which is illegal, to the police officer and local magistrate, and they were to decide on a case-by-case basis what would be careless driving. It's all arbitrary. We're supposed to have a separation of powers. Now, the term careless driving is not defined in the vehicle code. Section 102, that's the list of most of the definitions. Also, well, careless driving is described as careless disregard, and that too is not defined. And to make matters worse, the Section D, the definition was deleted. Well, it looks like it was deleted in 1990. I said, this Section 3714, big money maker. It is so arbitrary that if a police officer caught you going down the road picking your nose for a second, he could charge you with careless driving. Easy money. And another reason why they separated careless driving like as a separate violation instead of listing as a subsection for reckless driving, so that police officer can stack the bill. So you can get charged with reckless driving, careless driving, and say even distracted driving all at the same time to make more money. Now, if you would hire an attorney, so now as long as one of the buddies from the Millionaires Club, he's going to be, getting some cash out of the deal. So that they'll allow the lawyer, your defense attorney, to go to court, fluff his feathers, put on a good show, and say he can get 2 of the charges dismissed. Well, then it's a win-win for all the boys, because the lawyer, he's making money, charging you maybe $100 an hour, $150 an hour. Then the courts are raking in some money. They usually will they'll usually dismiss, like, say, 2 of the lesser charges, but like I said, they want to get some money, and then it's a you're losing either way, but it's a win-win for the boys. But if you don't challenge this violation of the style manual, then you agree that it's okay, and that's how the money racket operates. It's they prey upon your ignorance and your stupidity. So getting back to this this guy here, this Romney Stewart, I think he's on target, and so that's for you to decide. But it's a racket, and that means most of what you were taught in school was all baloney. And well, people today, they don't know how to write anyway. I just like, people post messages on like on Facebook or whatever. People don't know how to write anymore. Well, until the next video, in the meantime, check out this guy's website, this Justinian Deception. And so my goal is that, well, I keep mentioning, yeah, we need rules of the road. That's a no-brainer. You know, the roads are a shared space. But said the system is rigged, and they just said this is like legalized theft what takes place. Until next video.